I really want to center on Jesus.
Who?
Yeah. Well, hey, everybody. My name is Dave McDonald. This is my friend Liz Kirchmeier. She is the CEO and the leader of FAITH RX, a group of formerly only Christian CrossFitters, now Christian everybody's, Christian ninjas, Christian jiu-jitsers, Christian fitness aficionados of all stripes. And we're joined today by my friend Ned Schaut. Is that how you say your last name, Schaut?
That's it. Shout it out, baby.
Yeah, shout it out, baby. Ned is the CEO of Rise Up Kings Fitness in Hawaii. So tell us a little bit about Rise Up Kings, what you love, and where you hope to go.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. Stoked to hang out with you guys for a little bit on this wonderful day. So Rise Up Kings is a Christian business men's movement that started about 4 years ago by my good friend Skylar Lewis. And really, it was centered around helping men discover their identity as kings in God's kingdom and focus on business owners specifically. And, you know, one of the things we've noticed over the last 4 years of Skylar building that out and hundreds of men going through his 3-day and his 5-day, mentally, spiritually, emotionally challenging and equipping events is that men really are struggling in their area of fitness. And as men, we like to think of 4 pillars: faith, family, fitness, and finance. And the fitness pillar, to us is the most authentic opportunity men have, right? If I tell you me and God are super tight, I could tell you that, but you wouldn't know unless you spend a good amount of time with me. I could tell you me and my wife are crushing it, my kids love me, but you wouldn't know unless you maybe spent years with me, and I could probably hide that from you for a long time. Same with finances, right? I could tell you all this noise about what you should be doing with your finances while I'm on the border of bankruptcy. But if I tell you fitness is an important pillar to me, you're going to know in about 2 seconds whether I'm full of crap or not. And so over the last 6 to 12 months, we've really been leaning into how do we help men stand in this pillar of fitness with pure authenticity, right? If they all have an app where they get to check off points every day around, did I do fitness? But if we don't have standards around what that means, how are we helping men to level up? And the last thing I'll say about it is, and you can ask questions, is, with creating authenticity for men, what we've found is so many of the issues that many of us men struggle with, whether it be pornography or overly comfortable in whatever kind of, substance we might be consuming. When you get a hold of your nutrition and your fitness, so many of those other issues that you're trying to be a good Christian at, they start to go away because you're disciplining your body around, nutrition especially, but fitness as well. And so that's why we launched Rise Up Kings Fitness with 3 different phases to help men step into their fitness pillar authentically.
Dude, that's a big deal, and a big part of the emphasis that we've had at the Chapter House this year, the Fossores Chapter House, where we train preachers, leaders, and innovators from all over the world. But we notice common to people that have moral failings in ministry is that they don't get sufficient sleep or rest, they don't exercise, and they eat like garbage. And way more than even temptation with pornography, way more than alcohol or substance abuse. If you don't sleep and you don't work out and you eat like trash, you are going to have a bad day, if not a bad decade. So fitness has become increasingly top of mind for us in our work enlivening pastors and resourcing pastors, because man, if they don't take care of themselves, they can't take care of anybody else.
Yeah. And I think so many, whether you're talking about a pastor or a business owner, it's so easy for us to fall into, studying for the message I'm going to give, or leading my church or leading my company. And we think if I spend 60, 80 hours doing this, I just need to do more. I need to do more. I need to do more. And I think what we find is once you start to, I hate the word control, but the reality is you can control yourself. You start to control your calendar. You start to control the way you spend your time. When you do invest in yourself, fitness, sleep, water, nutrition, you're going to be way more effective in those hours you do spend. And I think that even me of kind of moving away from this idea of like, I got to get up at 3:30 and crush the day. Like, that's just not quite going to help me have legacy impact. Maybe short term, but not long term.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you say that, and I do think it's important for anybody who doesn't know you or people, listening or tuning in for the first time to know you're not lazy. Like, you're not a 4-hour work week guy. You don't put in the bare minimum. But I think the grind culture, or the rise up and get after it like a beast, and sort of who's performing their earliest morning workout for the most number of Instagram followers, that whole lie is ultimately going to collapse under its own weight. You can be disciplined, you can be devoted, you can maximize and optimize your time and still prioritize love and service to others and family, without prioritizing, I don't know, like I heard a podcast the other day where the guy was like, every morning I get up at 4. I was like, okay, me too. And I do 30 minutes of hardcore meditation. I was like, okay, I drink coffee. And then I spend 30 minutes with my wife. I was like, you spend 30 minutes with your wife from 4:30 to 4 or to 5 o'clock? Like, what terrible time. Yeah, no kidding. I'm like, even if that's time for you guys to have sex, what kind of sex are you having at 4:30 to 5 o'clock in the morning? Like it's a oven timer or something. Like, that's ridiculous. And he goes, and then we have time with our kids from 5 until 6 a.m. That's our family time. Like, your family sucks. Like, whatever that is. Like, that sounds awful. Because life is not an Excel spreadsheet. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I think sometimes too, it's important to remember it's good to have structure, and it's good. I actually like the fact that you said control myself or control my calendar, because all great discipline comes with a ton of control. You have to be able to control yourself. We say it in jiu-jitsu all the time. If you cannot control yourself, how are you going to control someone else's body or their mind or their thoughts or what they're doing, right? And so if we can't control ourselves, how can we lead other people to be able to do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we give men this false thing of like, oh, you're just a man, or, oh, you're just going to eat or watch this or look at that. We give people outs. And the thing is if you knew who you were, right? If you knew who you were, then you'd step into that. And we're comparing ourselves to a bunch of people who don't know who they are. So how can I judge myself against my neighbor who doesn't know he's a child of God, and me just be a little bit better than him? Like, when you know who you are, you have to step into the activities of a child of God, or a king in God's kingdom, or a queen in your case.
I want to be 1% better than my neighbor. That's your new fitness brand. 1% better than you.
A lot of us are doing that, right? A lot of us are doing that and calling that I'm a great dad, I'm a great husband. But are you the best version that you can be? Are you leveled up today compared to last week?
Now, please answer the first question, but my real interest is in the second question. But why kings? And then my second question is, what else instead of kings captures people's imagination? So first, why kings? Why is it rise up kings instead of rise up lords, or rise up dukes, or rise up Mashiachs, or whatever? Rise up warriors.
Oh yeah, dude, love it. Okay, so when I first went to Rise Up Kings 4 years ago, I couldn't even wear the shirt Rise Up Kings. I had such a struggle with it that I just felt like Jesus is the only king. I'm just this like servant, nobody, lucky to be in the room. I couldn't even wear the shirt. To where now today, it's pretty much the only t-shirt that I ever wear. And it's because I think my idea of what a king is has shifted over the last 4 years. A king isn't this fat, gluttonous, everybody serve me. A king is a guy who knows who he is. He walks into a room. He's ready to love and serve those that have been placed in his care with just pure, I'm God's hands and feet here right now. Yeah. And so that's, to me, what a king is. So I think that's really important to define what it is when we say Rise Up Kings.
Yeah. Now, what is it, instead of thinking of themselves like kings? What's the sort of soft sell or the deceit? What's the thing that people trade out as kings for? I mean, how are they living instead of kings? Are they living like paupers? Are they living like jokers? Are they living like buffoons? I mean, what's the other metaphor to which people tend to drift?
Orphans, bro. Orphans. People are walking around not knowing the access to who they were created to be. So they're just, that's the big thing, right? Like, my big thing is fatherhood, right? I have a fatherhood podcast. That's really what I lean into, is fatherhood. And I think the thing is everybody struggles with identity, and when you know who you are, you operate differently. So at the end of the day, you could use any word you want. Ultimately, we're children of God, right? We have an opportunity to live in his kingdom now. That's the good news. The good news is you're not an orphan out wandering. You belong. You belong. And people want to be known. They want to be seen, and they want to belong.
Yeah. Okay, here's a question for Liz, because I'm curious. We got all this fatherhood language, king language. When you hear guys talk kings and fatherhood, do you immediately translate in your mind like queen and motherhood, or do you have some other reaction? I mean, do you roll your eyes and go, oh, that's good, little king? I mean, what's a strong female reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think, sure, queen is great. Although I would probably feel pretty similar. I feel really awkward if like people were calling me queen all the time. I don't know. Some of me wants to be like, yeah. And then the other part of me is like, no, that's weird, right?
Yeah, right. Like you're pretending or something.
The whatever word you use, like the concept behind it is really powerful, I feel like. And for me, I just had this conversation not too long ago, like, it's so weird how much we demand of the men in our lives and how little gratitude we have as women for that. Like, we just think I don't want to say there is a population that thinks like, you should serve me. You shouldn't do whatever, you want to do. Don't go hang out with your boys because I have a list of chores for you to do. You have to be a perfect dad. Yeah, so I like the fact of like, I want to call my husband the king of our house, the leader of our house, even as a very strong, dominant, like, woman. I don't want to be like the leader. I want him to be the leader of our house.
Well, a queen shouldn't be with a joker. Like that seems easy. You want there's sort of a mutual dignity and a common respect, and yeah.
So I have a thought on that, Liz. I want to get your opinion. So I kind of don't like the word patriarch. I don't know why. We all have words that mean something to us. Patriarch to me feels...
That word's going through a rough season, bro. Not a lot of people are holding up to patriarchy right now.
But I will tell you, I love the word matriarch. So like when I think about the way I want to treat my wife, is I think about her as a queen, or I think about her as like this matriarch. I start to think about the impact she has as a mother on our kids, our grandkids, and hopefully one day our great grandkids. So I think to start like as a man, to start to build my wife up, and am I treating her like she's becoming this beautiful matriarch for our family? So I don't know, what does that word do for you, Liz?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I think that, for me, I mean, I don't care. I like to be called ninja. So like, it's, it doesn't really matter. As far as the word itself, I think the intent behind the word is what actually holds all the power to it. And, one person can like queen, one person can like, ninja, whatever it is. But, it's more of a matter of like, are you respecting me as a person, not just as a mother, not just how I'm growing in that role, but like me as a whole person, like how I have a relationship with Christ, how I have a relationship with the people around me, how I'm taking care of myself and my body. Like, are all of those things the things that you're proud of? Or are you just proud of me because I'm a good mom?
Yeah. Oh, we live in such a weird time right now with that, because I've got a son and 4 daughters. Right. So we're having these like deeper conversations. How am I raising my daughters? What's the expectation they have on themselves? And what's the expectation the world puts on them? It's like, even if they want to be just a mom, I mean, what a beautiful opportunity to be a homemaker, but we definitely don't glorify that.
Yeah.
Well, or like the recent events in the NFL demonstrate, sometimes we over glorify it. And really the best person to determine the vocation and calling upon each woman is that woman. Just like the best person to determine the vocation and calling of each person or each man is that individual. My daughter is the one who should be attending to the voice of the Holy Ghost, determining how God has called her to live. And maybe she's a homemaker. That's great. Maybe she's a CEO. That's great. Maybe she's a ninja. Maybe she's a CrossFitter. Maybe she's a power lifter. Anna is the one who gets to decide because she's a human being. Right. And I think that's a really critical aspect of Christian theology that we've lost. And it goes to the heart of what you mean when you talk about being a king. And I learned it like this while pastoring. I was a pastor for almost 30 years, and I was always sort of bashful about being in charge. I don't really want to be in charge. I don't need to be glorified. I don't need the stage. I don't need the limelight. I had all those things, but I don't really feel comfortable with them until I realized that if I'm not in charge, that doesn't mean only Jesus is in charge. That means some idiot is going to be in charge. And some idiot is going to get up there and abuse power. And some idiot is going to get up there and make outrageous statements. And some idiot is going to get up there and run down women and sideline minorities and speak poorly about their opponents. And I can call them some idiot because they're an imaginary person right now. But the truth is, I go, like, somebody has to be in charge. It's part of our spiritual DNA when we're given dominion and stewardship, called to tend and to till God's creation, to conserve and to conceive it. When we're told that the saints will judge the world, when we're told that we will rule and reign with Christ in the new creation and for all eternity, like, somebody's going to be in charge, and it's supposed to be you. And if it's not you, that means the person who isn't supposed to be in charge of your life will gladly take over, because there are always usurpers. There are always enemies. There are always people who will tell you what to do, even when it's none of their business, even when they're wrong, because all of us like to overstep our own authority. So we got to stand in what authority is appropriately ours and start with governing our own lives and attending to the voice of God and being obedient to the call of God in our lives. And then sort of out of that strength and position and power and confidence, then we can, worry about anything else. Sorry, I was preaching there.
No, I love it. That was so good.
Yeah, that's it. I've been in the sun all day, so I'm a little bit delirious, driving around in my Jeep with my last remaining gray hairs blowing in the air, holding hands with my daughter. So I'm halfway to heaven already. Oh man! Now you just did. This is a joint podcast with Faith RX. It's our first season, first episode, first new season of the Faith RX podcast. It's season 4 of the Chapter House podcast, I think. And then also we want to give a little plug for Holy Alive, the spirituality and fitness channel that I started on Instagram. But you just did the somatic spirituality certification with Holy Alive. What was that like? I mean, tell the goods and the bads, because some people are going, maybe I'll do it if Ned says it's great, and other people are going, there's no way I'm giving McDonald any money, let alone my time. That guy's not good.
Yeah, man, super incredible. So here's like a quick story. So I've always been into fitness, since I played sports as a kid, and then at 18 we'd get in the gym and have fun. It was something we always liked to do. Enjoy doing CrossFit, would do, Spartan races, Tough Mudders, whatever. And then when I turned 39, I was like, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life. So my 39th year, I joined a program. I thought I'd get it done in 90 days. And it was like, oh my gosh, this became a spiritual endeavor for me. I remember being on walks with God, like, yo, why can't I not eat all the candy corn that's in my house on, Halloween? Or why am I like chewing up a cookie and spitting it in the trash? I mean, literally, dude, it was this spiritual journey where I'm really having to connect with God. It took me a year to get down to like what I would consider my bottom, this ripped version of Ned at 40. And I did it a month before I turned 40. And so through that process, I had a lot of people asking me how I did it and wanting to learn from me. And I was like, I need to go learn the truth about this if I want to be an advocate and a teacher of this. So I went and got my CrossFit 1 certification. I'm getting my P1 certification. I'm getting my WAG certification. And as we're on this journey, we're really trying to tie together. So my friend Seth and I kind of wrote the Rise of Kings fitness program. And as we're on this journey, we're really trying to help men tie their faith and their fitness together. And so like one of the things we started doing was having men do a prayer of identity before they step into the gym. So it's like, God, thank you for my body. Thank you for this temple, blah, 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 blah. And as we did that, our first 90-day program, I mean, we had a pastor on our program who lost a bunch of weight, lowered his body fat, and he straight said, hey, I have never been grateful for my body. There has always been shame. Like, I've been a pastor for 20 years, and this prayer of identity has unlocked for me to have to thank God for this body every day. And so on that journey of us really trying to tie this together, we found Dave, and we found the somatic spirituality. I found the Holy Alive articles. I crushed all of them on an airplane ride, a 5-hour airplane ride from Hawaii to California. And I'm like, I want to teach this stuff. I have to teach this stuff. I can't. It's like trying to tell somebody to be a good dad without talking about your faith, right? It's like you're not sharing the whole truth. So I think one of the things I realized, one, I was so pissed off that nobody talked to me about nutrition my first 20 years of fitness. Like, really, I walk in all these CrossFit boxes and you didn't force me to go to a nutrition class? What the hell? Like, it's 90% of what I'm wanting.
Yeah.
And then the other component is the faith component, right? Like this is a temple. And so crushing your Holy Alive articles, I wanted to teach it authentically. So I reached out to you and was like, yo, can we pay you? Like, what do we got to pay you so that I can talk about this in my program without feeling like I just stole your material? I think I called you and said, I want to be a disciple of your material. And will you create a program? And so you already had a program you had been developing or developed. And same thing. I'll just end with this. If you want to teach fitness and you are a believer in that your identity is a child of God and you're teaching this without nutrition and God's food and connecting it to the Bible, it's kind of like, where's the foundation? Like, cool, you're going to have somebody in your program for 90 days. You're going to have somebody in your community. If you're not tying it to faith, what's the point? Now, that doesn't mean let's add Christian t-shirts for everybody. Like that's horrible. And that's not what I'm talking about. Right. What I'm talking about is like add the truth behind why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a real thing that used to always drive me crazy in my work as a chaplain with colleges and university athletes, or even with pro athletes, is sort of the thing that everybody tries to do when they make fitness Christian is find Bible verses. And there's no fitness culture in the Bible. Like the whole world was different. Their fitness culture was working on the farm every day, or their fitness culture was being a soldier. I mean, nobody jogged for fun. Like this it just wasn't the way the world worked, you know? And so when we try and find things that work in our world like this from back there then, you end up with a really thin understanding of faith. And that's why I think my friend Sean Post, you know, he wrote that great book, Train for Love. It's a book I recommend to everybody. He's going to be on the podcast. Love Sean, love his thinking. But he continuously reframes the whole idea of our physicality as a manifestation of love. Love is a function of capacity. If you want to show great love, you got to have great capacity. You got to have great energy. You got to have great stamina. Got to have great perseverance. You know, I mean, sometimes life is going to push you past what you reasonably should do. That's just the way it goes, man. If you're a young mom or a young dad and you've got a baby that's up all night crying, or if your kid's colic, or if your kid's sick, if you're somebody who's looking after a loved one that's got a long terminal illness, they're taking years and years and years to die, you're not going to get enough rest. You're going to be cranky. You're going to be stressed out. That's not because you're not devoted or not disciplined. That's just because life circumstances kick you in the face sometimes. And it's your love that allows you to overcome your exhaustion. And you can train for that love by devoting yourself in the times where life isn't beating you up to expand and grow your capacity so that when adversity comes, you're ready for it. And I think that's such a healthier perspective on why we go to the gym, on why we train, on why we manage our nutrition, and why we manage our fitness. And it also takes so much of the shame out of it. Like if I take my shirt off and I look in the mirror and I go, oh, I'm not gorgeous. I don't have the weird little like slide that goes down to my pelvis. I'm like, I'm immediately disappointed that I don't look like Marky Mark, right? Sorry, that's a great reference. I'm just enjoying right now. But the thing that drives me then to go to the gym is that I want to be sexy or I want to be hot. And that shame and that eagerness is ultimately not going to fulfill me. Because I'm never going to be as hot as somebody else. And I'm never going to lose enough weight. And I'm never going to be strong. But conversely, if I'm going, no, I'm here because I know I'm going to need my strength so I can love and serve other people, then it's my selflessness and my devotion to Jesus that's pushing me in the gym, because I'm not just training to win today's workout. Or I'm not just training to, you know, maybe go to the CrossFit Games when they get the 800 and over category. I'm finally, you know, the only person left alive and I can qualify. No, I'm training so that I can look after people. And that's why God's put me here in the first place.
Yeah, I had a conversation with an athlete actually just this morning, and she said she loves coming to the gym because it's the place where she feels like by taking care of herself, she's actually serving those around her, because later in life, they're not going to have to take care of her.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, what a perspective. Like, that's so great. I just want to stand up when I'm 90, like with minimal help. You know?
Yeah. I did a wedding
I
on.
Loved it.
Yeah. I did a wedding on Saturday, and my friend Don Nichols was there. He's 87. He jogs 30 miles a week. He drove 8 hours to go to this wedding that morning, and then was driving home that evening. I'm like, I want to be this guy.
Yeah.
This guy's amazing. And it's because he's been taking care of his body for so long that nobody has to worry about him. You know, like he's more likely to get eaten by a bear than to fall over from heart disease. He's amazing. And I go, that's love. That's love for yourself. That's love for your people.
Yeah, you want to talk about love. Two things that we say to men as we're working to encourage them to join is, one, are you an asset or a liability? So like right now, if you're at a theme park with your kids, or you're out to dinner with your wife, if something goes down, are other men looking at you in the room as a crap, we got to help this guy too? Or are they looking at you saying, dude, come over here, let's help? And, or is your wife looking at you like, cool, my man's with me, he'll know to do something. And the thing is you can't be prepared for everything, but are you prepared for anything? And men need to know, like, the feeling of being able to serve those around me and help my kid, help my wife, help a neighbor, like that makes you feel alive, right? And you have to train for that. You have to be prepared for that. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. Now, we talked a lot about shame during the somatic certification. What sticks out to you about those conversations? Because we went back and forth about the fact that, I mean, for starters, shame is so effective. Like if you want to really motivate somebody into getting fit, you humiliate them. And then chances are most people, most of the time, will take the bait, get fit, and then, hate you and hate themselves, no matter how fit they get. And then they'll lose their fitness later. But I mean, the whole concept of shame as a motivator is a big part of our conversation. And you had big takeaways.
Let me ask you your opinion on this. So when we tend to talk about shame is different than guilt. So I don't think guilt's bad. So I'm going to ask you your opinion on this. I think guilt, like if I feel guilty that I couldn't go run a half mile down the street to help my son who crashed on his bicycle and he scraped up or broke his arm, I should feel guilty about that. Now, shame is that I'm just a fat piece of crap and there's nothing I can do about it. And I'm just going to hate myself for that. I don't want you to feel shame, but I think a little bit of guilt that you can't run down there, if it motivates you to go and become who you're capable of becoming, then I don't think guilt is bad. So I think those would be the differences, is that shame is identity-based and guilt is motivation-based. I just think most of us are kind of accepting that I'm fat and comfortable and going to stay here. And so we're taking guilt on as shame. What do you think?
Yeah. Well,
See, I feel like,
go ahead.
No, I just feel like for me, it's a perspective. So like guilt is something I feel, whereas I feel like shame is something someone else is trying to place on me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I would really resist any guilt, feeling any guilt or supporting any guilt for things that haven't happened. Like my kid didn't fall down the road a mile away. I didn't need to run and go get him. So if I'm imagining the guilt I should feel for this thing that never happened, I'm just going to always feel like garbage no matter what. And I would think making up any kind of scenario in your head, especially when it's a bad scenario, is really unhealthy.
Well, but okay, well, let me ask you this, though, because time travel is a beautiful gift, right? Now, many of us time travel in the past and just think about how crappy something was in the past. But I can time travel to future Ned. Like, what does future Ned want to be feeling like when he's walking his daughter down the aisle, or when he's at the hospital, when or when his son calls and says, Dad, can you come pick up little Timmy to play for the day? Do I want to be in a position where I can put on a suit, not size 38 pants, and and then for playing with my grandkid, do I want to be in a position to play with my grandkid? So
listen, some of us look really great in size 38 pants out the back.
I was going to say, my husband looks really good in a size 38. So.
Yeah, some of us got a little junk in the trunk, bro. It's because we squat. We don't skip leg day. I refer to In the Adventure of Happiness as a book I wrote years and years ago after 8 years of studying the psychology and the theology and the philosophy of happiness. I refer to it as the difference between future casting and future tripping. And future tripping is when you imagine negative scenarios and you live in the shame as though these things that haven't happened actually have happened, and you experience all this heaviness and this isolation because of what might occur. The Bible sometimes calls that fear. The Bible sometimes calls that, the fear of man. We might call it a negative perception of the future. I just go, we all do it, man. We all have arguments in the shower. We all, make up imaginary scenarios where we get our zinger in against our boss or our spouse or whatever. That's future tripping, and it's not helpful. What is helpful though is future casting. When you envision a positive scenario in the future, where you might call it vision casting. You know, like Proverbs says, where there's no vision, the people cast off restraint, the people perish. You know, you live in an imagination of the future in which you're optimized and vitalized, and that can be really motivating. But you're focusing on the good. For example, you had a vision of yourself at 40 is in the best shape of your life. The thing that's motivating you is that vision. It's calling you forward. You're excited about the vision. You're motivated. You're directed towards this idealization of your future self. Your vision was not, if I'm at 40, a stupid fat piece of garbage, you know, wearing Dave McDonald's pants without Dave McDonald's ass. That'd be awful. You know, I mean, who wants that?
I think too, it's like the time that we spend in those spaces. Like, how much time are we giving that? You know, it's one thing to be like, okay, you know, I could have done a lot better in that workout, or, you know, I could have, you know, written that paper a lot better, whatever it is. How much time are we spending in that space? And are we doing it immediately after the event? If we're doing it immediately after the event, then we're not spending any time thinking about the things that we're positive about. And there's a lot of research that shows however we end one workout, we'll begin the next workout. So if I end the workout going, man, that really sucked. It was so hard. I couldn't run. These are all the terrible things that I did during that time. Then the very next workout, I'm going to walk in and be like, oh, okay, here we go. Instead, take some time and say, okay, that was tough, but it's done. It's over. We go. Yeah. Now, there is also time and space where we say, okay, you know, especially for preparing for a competition, or we do have some goals that we've set out for ourselves. There is a time where we're going to say, okay, we need to restructure this. I need to reorganize my thoughts. How could I have done this better? There's a time for it. So my whole point here is just to say, like, you know, it's not bad to say, you know, here are the list of negative things that happened and how I can do them better. But it's how much time we're spending in that space and when we're doing that too.
That's good.
Agreed. And I think it's just, are we giving people reality, right? Like, I think if I was in a gunfight, I'd be John Wick because I watched all John Wick movies. but I've like shot a gun twice this year, right? Yeah. So I think like sometimes we have vision for ourselves that is not in reality. And I'm not saying we need guilt or shame necessarily, but how am I gauging whether I can actually show up? Like, how am I having some reality as to what's true? Like, I think, oh man, if my kid was drowning right now, I could save him. Well, when was the last time you swam? When was the last time you did a push-up? So I'm not saying we need to use shame to make people do things, but I do think that people need reality to go like, are you really ready? Have you prepared at all for this? Any kind of scenario.
Yeah, you want some sort of diagnostic, and that's why I think the healthiest, you know, vision casting or future casting. You know, you want sort of your ultimate goals, your ultimate aims, your ultimate reality, and then some benchmarks along the way. You know, nobody does a 90-second Fran. Nobody does a 4-minute Fran without first doing their 8-minute Fran. I mean, everybody knows there's a progression, and you got to have, you know, certain measurable steps, you know, to get there along the way, to have a sober appraisal of who you are and where you're at. And I think that's healthy. Yeah, that's healthy. What about, I'm curious, like, as you look at sort of the climate of Christian culture right now, particularly through social media, because that's how we're all consuming culture. I mean, that's how we're getting it. It's our television, it's our everything, you know. So as you look at the church, inside and outside of the fitness industry, inside and outside of pastoral ministry, where do you think the gaps are between the life God has called us to enjoy and the way Christians are living?
Yikes, man, that's a heavy question. Okay, well, I guess what I would bring it to is just the home. Like, as I kind of break down community in general, I think that overall family and home is the first and foremost place where this is supposed to be lived out. And so from my perspective, as talking a lot to men, to fathers, I think that the gap is that we're still looking to somebody else to kind of do the heavy lifting or the work of leading our family and the kingdom. and that there's a huge opportunity for us to have community in our homes and lead in our homes. Like last night, we do once a month family meeting, happened to be last night. We go over our core values. We go over our mission as a family. We took communion together. It was like some grape soda and a tortilla, whatever I could find. It was super holy. And then we read Matthew 6, and we all talked about it and shared some feelings around it. So I think that the gap is that it's like we don't want to look at the church, to the like building of the church. We're like frustrated with that, but yet we're not taking it into our responsibility in our home. And then I guess the other thing I would say is I still feel like there's kind of too much of an emphasis on like personal relationship with Jesus versus like group relationship with Jesus. Whereas like if I could read my Bible by myself every day and know all the scripture and be super homies with God, but that not be exuded out into like the world at all, it's not happening in relationship, then kind of what's the point? So those would be a couple of thoughts that I have around it. I don't know if that answered your question.
So I kind of have, I don't know, a little bit a different view there, because I think it starts with you first. I think the personal relationship that you have with Christ, and I can read my Bible all day and do Bible studies and show up to church and, do all the Christian-y things, but like for me, this is a huge part of my journey in Christ, and why I am even doing what I'm doing right now is because I found the difference between being a Christian and actually having a relationship with Christ. Previously, I would say that I was a great Christian. I was going to heaven. I spent, 25 hours a week at church, went on mission trips, went on, women's retreats, did Bible studies, all kinds of stuff, worked in the children's programs. But my life looks very different from that. I don't spend that much time inside of a church or doing Bible studies now. But I feel like my life has so much more purpose than it ever did before. And it's because in my journey, I have actually developed a relationship with Christ. So when I read my Bible, I feel like I'm having a conversation with my God. Like that is different for me. Lots of people I feel like can memorize Bible verses and go to church and do all the things. And man, in my experience, some of the most unhealthy people I've met have been at church, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, and not, it doesn't matter. It just, that's my experience. And so I disagree, because what about the people who don't have a family? What if I didn't have a family? So I can't say that it starts at
So I
family.
think, though, you're asking me Ned's perspective from who Ned is. I'm not for all people. Right. So I have my relationship with God, and God's called me to be an inspiration, I think, to men who are fathers. So when I speak, I'm not speaking to anybody but that, because I'm not here to speak to mothers. I'm not here to speak to single men. I'm not here to speak to single mothers. Like, I think that's great. Like, that's a church's job, a pastor's job, to be for everybody. But I'm way more specific. So if you're going to ask me a question, it's not going to be general. It's going to be specific to like my crowd.
That's a good clap back.
Yeah.
I just like to push back in general, because it makes for better conversation. So the idea that our faith is not an individual faith, that Jesus is not our personal Lord and Savior, but he's our collective Father. I think that's healthy. That's good biblical teaching. Like the church collectively is the bride of Christ. I am not Jesus' baby mama, right? Like there's definitely a community identity to the people of God. And also, it's worth pointing out that Christian people are overfed, and Christian communities are overfed. And we have so many unused nutrients and unavailable energy. When you eat too much and you eat garbage, you poop a lot. I hate potty humor, and so I don't like to do that. But your body processes all these unused energies, calories, foods as waste. And I think one of the reasons that church is so shitty is because we're not using our energy and we're not eating healthy food. And so you get a bunch of Christian people together, and week after week after week, they listen to their Christian songs and they go to their Christian groups and they enjoy their Christian clubs. And it's unused energy. It's unmetabolized spiritual nutrition that never gets into mission or purpose or calling or witness. And as a result, the church just sort of wastes away because we all allow each other to be crappy. And I think that the healthy example of the New Testament, the book of Acts in particular, and even the example of the disciples is illustrative because Jesus tells the disciples in Acts, go into all the world and preach the good news. And they say, okay, and then they stay in Jerusalem. He says, go, and they say yes, and then immediately disobey by staying there. The only reason that the church ever spread out of Jerusalem was because of persecution. So it took pain to make even the first apostles obedient. And I think we realize the same thing now is that when we're comfortable, we say yes to Jesus, but then never actually do yes to Jesus. We just sit around and waste away and gossip and talk about other people and, deteriorate.
Yeah. So let me clarify something. So you asked me, what do I see as wrong, right? Or where do I see gaps? Okay. Yeah. And so I spend time reading my word every morning. And I spend time one-on-one, just me and God. And it is beautiful and I love it. I think a lot of Christians do that and they check it off the list as I'm being a Christian, right? I can't say the scripture now, but say you're a teacher, you're a leader, whatever, and you're not managing your own household first, then all this noise, your podcast, your books, all that stuff is bullcrap. Because you're not leading in your home, right? So I should find the verse. So that's where I'm saying that to me is a gap. When you have divorce up, when you have transgender issues, when you have kids who don't know who they are, when you have all these things that point to a moral family following God could be the answer to so many of those wrestlings. That's the gap to me. So that's like why I'm going, how are you taking your morning routine and making an implementation in a community that's real? Last thought that I had is like when we leave church on Sundays, we go twice a month probably. I ask my kids, what did you agree with and what did you not agree with? And the pastor, they had a special speaker yesterday and he was on point until the last crap that he said. And it doesn't mean I'm leaving or whatever, but I talk about it with my kids like, hey, what'd you agree with? And they're all like, that thing he said, that was noise. We're like, yeah. Just because somebody's on stage in front of you sharing this doesn't mean you have to take it all. I think we need this to be able to grow as Christians because I need Liz's perspective. If I'm just in my Bible by myself, Ned's perspectives are going to be whack. If I'm just with white, bearded 40-year-olds.
Whoa,
that was you.
Yeah.
Was
Sorry,
you.
Dave. You didn't make that cut.
Yeah. Somebody has to look like Brett Favre in the kingdom of God. Okay, well, I do. Here's another thing though that I also think is worth just needling a little bit. I'm very familiar with the biblical language on gender. I've read the book. I know how it goes. I know how it ends. So let's just momentarily acknowledge that we're all making the best of the scriptures that we have, right? Yeah. Nobody's playing fast and loose. Well, we got this book. We got to figure out what we believe about it, what to do with it, and how to make it work for the present. I think too much has been made of gender-specific language in the Bible because we tend to ignore the gender differences in Scripture. For example, like women had no rights whatsoever at any point ever. Like women were not of equal societal or civil standing as men. And so when you have really specific gendered roles, even in the New Testament, you're failing to acknowledge that guys could do some things then that girls couldn't do then. There's not a lot of things that guys can do now that girls can't do now. And not only that they can't do now, but it's really, really, really normal for women to do now. So when we talk about stuff like, being the priest of the home or, taking charge and leading your family, I go, well, maybe once upon a time that was the special position and privilege of men. And maybe it's true that men have lost that, both because it's been taken away from them. It has. And because they've surrendered it. They have. We have. But I also think it's fair to say that a healthier understanding of that is to go, people need to pasture their home. Men and women need to pastor their home. We need female priests of the home, and we need male priests of the home. Mothers should pastor their children. Mothers should pastor their sons. Mothers should pastor their daughters. Fathers should pastor their sons and daughters. I mean, this is a thing that everybody ought to be able to walk in their dignity, because in Genesis, men and women were both made in the image and likeness of their Creator. It's not that men have a special privilege. It's not, maybe once, but if so, that was culturally encased. Not now.
So I agree with you. And also, I do think, okay, first off, we would be in a freaking shithole if it wasn't for moms. Like, moms have been leading forever. Like, they have been, right? My mom's a believer. My dad is not. My whole world and existence is because my mom led me. So what I would like to lean into is, if I'm going to dance with my wife, okay, somebody has to take that first step. It doesn't mean that I'm better or superior, but somebody has to take that vulnerable step. Yeah. So when I talk about a dad leading in the home, it's not because I think he should overlead the mom. I think the mom's been carrying the dude's weight for way too freaking long, and it's time that dad step up. And that doesn't mean this patriarchal view of like, serve me, it's time, everyone shut your mouths, this is what we're doing. I almost, to make it easy, is like, I just think the dad should create this space, right? Like last night, I'm like, hey, everybody home by 6, we're going to have this time together. I just created this space and had a little agenda. But then I do think this is where a dude can struggle, because this is Ned, is controlling the space. Like, don't control the moment, have the moment happen. And then if the Holy Spirit's talking to my wife or my son or whatever, like, let it play out. Don't feel like you have to dictate the outcome. So I guess that's where I'm trying to help men go, just create some space for your family to connect, because we've been putting that weight on moms for too long. And it doesn't mean mom can't also like be a part of that.
I really like that. And I didn't hear you being misogynistic. I just always think there's so much misogyny in the church, and the default, like what we tend to accidentally communicate is patriarchy. And certainly there's no shortage of those voices and assumptions out there. So I always think it's worth poking at.
Okay, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but let's just say the dude who's at church 60 hours a week, stacking the chairs, doing the books, whatever. Now that guy who's like forcing his kids to read the Bible for an hour every morning before school, I'm not talking about that guy. I'm talking about the 9 other guys who haven't been called up into like, do something worthwhile in your home and love and serve your family. That's the dudes I'm talking about.
I like that point you made about creating the space, don't control the space. And I think that's great. That's great advice for everybody. Yeah.
All right, we got a couple minutes. What are things that people are listening that they want to know, they have questions about that matter for us to go make impact on our lives and our world?
Here's a big one. I get asked this all the time, and it'd be fun to hear both of you answer, because I bet you have slightly different answers, if not radically different answers. But what makes fitness spiritual? Like, why is the way I take care of my body of any concern to God or to me as a Christian?
For me, it's more kind of like the conversation that I had with an athlete earlier. I feel like I have more capacity. I have more to give. I can do better doing God's work, or what I feel God is leading me to, if I work out. Yeah. If I feel fit, if I feel like I've been eating well, I've been sleeping well, like all of those things play into the Liz that you're going to see today. And I always want to try to show up as the best version of myself, because ultimately, like, I want people to see Christ in me. Yeah. And if they show up and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't had coffee, I haven't slept, I haven't worked out in 3 days, I feel like garbage, like, that's what they're going to see.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Yeah. How about you, dude?
You know, you can't love your neighbor unless you love yourself. And so much of our lives as American Christians is just so comfortable. I mean, I don't got to think about my bed, cold water, hot water, flushing my poop, as David likes to talk about, down the toilet, food in my fridge. I mean, we don't have to worry. We're so comfortable. And so to be able to love myself, I have to wrestle with myself. And so fitness and nutrition is an opportunity for me to create moments of wrestling with myself so that I can know myself, so that I can love myself, which is then in turn going to give me the opportunity to love those around me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's so important. It's so important. And that doesn't mean like when I take my shirt off that I want to look good in the mirror. It's that like today because something I've been practicing too, which Seth has challenged me on, is to not listen to like my hardcore Rage Against the Machine during my workout of the day, but to not listen to anything and to just go dark in my own mind and wrestle with myself. And it is actually like a next level of starting to get to know who you are.
Sure.
You can hear all those voices in your head.
Yeah. The thing I love is that you're like, my body never lies. You know, like I can tell you I've read a bunch of books and you can't see my brain, but I can't tell you I can do a bunch of push-ups because you can look and go, I think you could do a few push-ups. You can't do 1,000. Like you just know. If I tell you I got a pretty good deadlift, you can go, yeah, probably, but you don't have an 800-pound deadlift, dude. Like, come on. Like we can see. So there's no lying about who you are or what you do. And I like that because there's some things for which I have a tremendously high capacity, and I feel really good about those things, and I feel really proud of those things. But there's other times when I can tell like I'm just being indulgent right now. Like I love bourbon. I love it. I'm the world champion of bourbon loving. And there's times where I have too much and you go, oh, you know how I know I've had too much bourbon? Is because I can see that I'm heavy and I can feel that I'm slow. And sometimes I can see it like my cheeks are rosy and I go, man, like even enjoying bourbon in moderation is causing me to see that I am living a life I do not enjoy. And so I got to even roll back the bourbon at times so that I can live life the way I want. And it's just tells the truth all the time. And I used to be really heavy. And I know that you get really heavy by doing things that produce heaviness. Potato chips, beer, lethargy, video games, movies. And if I'm going to close my eyes and design the perfect life for Dave McDonald, it doesn't include lethargy. And so when I look in the mirror and I see a level of fitness or lack of fitness, it's a way for me to go, I'm off track because this isn't the life that I want. And you're not going to change everything overnight. All those changes are sort of a revelation of what you did over the last year, and they're a call to do something different for the next year if the life you want is elsewise. And in my case, yeah, it is. I want a life of passion and adventure. And you can't have adventures with 2 beers in each hand sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
You can't have adventures with 2 beers on each hand driving a boat. But
or right after Murph.
Yeah, or right after the Murph.
After the
Murph. Yeah. Well, thanks a ton, Ned. So appreciate you taking the time with us, brother. Any final thoughts before we conclude? Any last message you want to leave people with?
Well, fitness is free. Your body's a temple. It matters. Find something. I would highly encourage you to do the somatic spirituality. If you are leading people at all in fitness, have a base of faith that you're teaching from. And then if you want to learn more about my podcast, Fatherhood Field Notes, or Rise of Kings Fitness, riseofkingsfitness.com. Yeah. That's it, my brother.
Dope, man. Well, thank you. Super positive voice. Great dude. Have loved getting to know you and appreciate your time tonight. So God bless, man. With you.
Yep. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Dave.